YouTube disclaimer. This is theoretical and hypothetical. This is not legal or financial advice. Viewer discretion advised. This video is for entertainment only. Now, like I said, if you want to do any sort of business in this world today, they want you to do it through corporations. But why should we do business this way? This is evil. Like, again, if you talk about demons, what is a demon? A non-physical entity that is trying to absorb your soul, bleed you dry. That's a corporation, by definition. That's a non-physical entity, a dead entity, trying to bleed you dry. Its sole purpose is to accumulate wealth and power. Nothing else. It has no care, has no ethics, it has no responsibility. And herein lies the other thing. A corporation was invented, the concept of a corporation was invented to absolve any living man or woman of responsibility or liability. Hi there, my name is Toby and this is part 4 of my lecture series, Natural Law. And today, this is the final part, I want to talk about a better system. See, there is a better system we could use, and it's only just now become apparent because it's only just now that we've got the technology for this system. But before we talk about that, let's just clarify once more, what is the system we are living in? Now, so far I've talked about the natural law and how that becomes common law when we try and write it down, and that's very simple. We should all be able to understand that. And then I've talked about the legal system and how the state and the financial system have really deceived us and taken advantage of this system. And they're in fact acting against the law now. They're really breaking the actual law. But it's done in the name of law. It's done through legislation, through the legal system. So let's have a look at it once more, because there's one more level to this that I haven't covered. And we need to look at that. So look, the natural law is here. We understand this. Common law. 3 things. Do not harm, do not steal, do not cheat. Ever so simple. And in fact, this is so simple, a baby, you could teach this to a baby. And in fact, we should. We should be teaching our children this from the very beginning, because this will set them up for life. And this is not religious. This is not arbitrary. This is logical. If you go back to my lecture series and watch from the beginning, you'll see this is the most efficient way of being. This is how we can gain the most energy in life. So this is what we should be teaching our children. Now, you could have a child may steal the toy of another child, and we think, it's just a toy, no big deal. But it's the same as when one country goes and steals another country. It's the same act of stealing. It doesn't matter that it's a toy. It doesn't matter that it's a child. It's the same greed. And we've got to nip that greed in the bud from the very beginning. You see, if we all learnt this from a baby, we'd be living in a very different world. Very different world. So, and again, remember what I was talking about. You've got these three laws. But we need evidence for these laws, because there could be a dispute. So we need some evidence. So what do we need? Number 1, do not harm. Well, for that I need an identity. So it's got to be me. I've got to say who is the one that is being harmed. But that identity is me. That's a real physical thing, a living being. And for that I need a signature. So the signature is the evidence. And then next one, do not steal. Well, that is my property. So I've got to know what is my property. And under natural law, common law, whatever you create is yours. And we can understand that. That's logical. So that is our property. But we need an evidence for that. Evidence of that is a title. And then the last one, do not cheat. Well, that is an agreement. 2 of you have a discussion. You decide on something, but we need evidence of that agreement, and that is a contract. Now, so this is in fact all we need. This is all we need to run an honest, lawful system. But remember, this is still ambiguous, so there's going to be a dispute, and that dispute is settled by a court. So you will have a court But a court is really a jury. It's got to be a jury, not a judge. So an independent group of your peers, living men and women, they listen to the argument with intelligence and make a decision. And this is all still free, honest, and this is common law. This is still the natural law. This is the law of the living man and woman, the sovereigns. So here you've got my identity, my property, my agreement. That is the real world. That is reality. But here on this side, we've got a signature, we've got a title, we've got a contract. This is paper. So this is paperwork. So there are two worlds now. There's a division between these two worlds. But we have to have these two worlds. Now, of course, the other thing is now this gives us another problem, because the paperwork world can be also messed around with. You can fake someone's signature. You know, you can forge a title, you can fake a contract. So that's another problem. That's another problem. But again, the better system I'm talking about will solve this problem. It's a system that will allow us to bring these two worlds together. But before we come to that, let's look at what's happened now in the system we've got now. So if you can see here, natural law, common law is intuitive, it's instinctive, it's in the real world, but we have to create a paperwork world to enforce it, to keep an eye on it. Now, so the powers that be are looking after the world, they're looking after the paperwork. They've made this paperwork now very, very complicated. Very, very complicated indeed. And they're using this paperwork to manipulate us and essentially break the law. And of course, there's one more here I forgot to mention, number 4. You have, put it up here, gold. So here you have business. You know, let's call this business. And for that you need money. But money, real money is gold. But remember, we also have paperwork money, and that is a fungible title. So if you have gold coins, they're all the same. You can have a little title for each gold coin, but they're all the same, so they're called fungible. But it's really just number 2, a title over property, a title over gold. So we need this for business. Now, the trouble is we've got greedy people, so they want more gold. And the greedy people have essentially messed around with this paperwork to get more gold and more power. And they've done something else. They've taken this paperwork to a whole nother level. So far, this is okay. This is all we need in the system. You might think, well, it's only a small system. What about, a system of government, a system of council? Well, you can still have that. You can still have, see, remember, an agreement, a contract. You can still have a contract with, this is with 2 people, but you can have it with 3 people. That would be a trust. It's still just a contract, but you can have it with many people. You can have it with 10,000 people. Why not? So you could have something called a parliament. A parliament. Now what is that? A meeting of minds. Parliament. So that's still a group, a whole big group of living men and women having a discussion, coming to an agreement, and then all signing it. Could be 10,000, but they all must sign it. Okay, it's still basically just this system of 4 things. You can go to very big organizations with this. The trouble is, of course, when you get into the paperwork of all that, it's very, very complicated, and this is where all the manipulation has happened. So these powers that be have already started messing around with this, and they've taken the paperwork world into another level. They've taken it into the level of corporations. So what is this? What is a corporation? Now, a corporation is not a living man or woman. It's a fictional thing. Someone has made up this concept of a corporation. But what is it? Well, it is an entity. It's an entity, but it has a single purpose. The purpose of a corporation is to make money. That is its only purpose. To make money and accumulate power. But they're really the same thing. You could argue they're making money to accumulate power, or they're gaining power to accumulate money. It's the same thing. But that is all it does. It's an entity with a single purpose of making money. But it's not a living thing. It's fictional. It's paperwork only. So it's not alive. Therefore, this common law does not apply to it. You can't hurt it because it hasn't got an identity. You can't steal its property. It hasn't got anything. You can't make an agreement with it because it's not alive to have a discussion. This is an entirely fictional entity. And it's in the paperwork world only. Now, this is very, very dangerous for us. It's very dangerous for us because the law does not apply to a corporation. But but they can't just do this in front of us. They've got to give it a semblance of law. So they've created legal. So the legal world applies to corporations. Does not apply to living men and women. But it's a semblance of law. It's acting as law. So we can think, oh, it's law. It's not. It only applies to these dead entities. They're dead. They're not alive. Fictional entities. But these things are evil because they have no ethics. They have no morals. Remember, they have a single purpose to accumulate money and power. And they do that as well by absorbing each other. Each one, they're like eating each other up. So they become monopolies. The end goal is a monopoly. But even if you have a monopoly, that gets very obvious. So they have to sort of write it in their legal terms. No, we're not allowed monopolies. But of course they are a monopoly. You see, all corporations, it's inevitable, it's going to be one at the top. It's going to be one at the top, and that is the Crown Corporation. So it might be something else, but let's call it the Crown Corporation. So it's whoever had this idea of creating something called a corporation, well, they're the king now. They're the king of all corporations. The very idea of creating a corporation goes against the natural law. So by definition, when you create a corporation, you are already breaking the law. So that none of this is lawful. It can only be legal. And the way I look at it, let's look at it like this. The way I look at it, a corporation has a sole purpose to make money. So it doesn't follow the laws, but it has rules. It will have rules, i.e. the legal system of rules. But it will follow something that I call the rules. It follows the rules of acquisition. Now, if you are a Star Trek fan, there was the old Star Trek, I think it might be Deep Space Nine. There was an alien race in there called the Ferengi. They were green, had great big ears. And they, of course, they were mercantile. They're always about business, making money. That's all they were about. And of course, they were crooks. They would cheat wherever they could. But they had these things called the rules of acquisition. And they all learnt them. And they lived their lives by the rules of acquisition, acquiring money at all costs. And the rules of acquisition boil down to simply get as much money as you can, as fast as you can, by any means necessary. That's essentially the rules of acquisition. Now, there can be a lot more detailed rules of ways you could do it. But you see, that goes against that. What is the fastest way to get money? Well, cheat. You cheat, you get money quicker. Steal, well, you get it instantly. Harm, yeah, get rid of the people, take their stuff. But again, rules of acquisition, you've got to think the big game. You know, you don't just go and, extinguish everyone, take this stuff, well, it's all over. You want to have, as I mentioned in the last lecture, slaves working for you, building up. So you can keep getting bigger, more and more money. So the rules of acquisition are the long game of the corporations. But this is the dark side of the force. This is the light side of the force. So we need a better system, a system that allows us to run this. And we don't need this at all. And you see, this is how the state, again, as I mentioned in the last lecture, another dirty trick that the state has done is they've created a trust fund. They've essentially enslaved us with the birth certificate, And the birth certificate is used to create credit, and that credit is bought and sold and lent upon to make money, and that money goes into a trust fund that ultimately goes back to the state. But if we can step up and claim it, it becomes ours. Now, how do they do that? There's a bit more detail to this. They create a birth certificate, but they really create two. So they have one certificate on this side. That's this. It's a certificate of live birth. So here you have, a real living man or woman, boy or girl is born. But they create a second one. They create another one over here. And this is, let's call it stillborn. Stillborn. It's more like a dead, a dead birth certificate. And really what this is a corporation. In the corporate world, it's all got to be legal. It's got nothing to do with law. But they've got to follow their rules of acquisition, their legal system, and they have a code. They have their own language. That language is called Unified Commercial Code, UCC. It's a real thing, worldwide language, very difficult to understand. And they use this code to operate all their systems amongst themselves. This is like the unspoken rules of pirates. They've all got to sort of work together, but they're all competing as well. This is a world of competition. This world is not competing. This world is protecting the integrity of a sovereign. This world is destroying each other. These are all fighting. This is the snake eating its own tail. So you see, so they have their own secret language. And in fact, what they've done now in this paperwork world, they've made everything into a corporation. Everything is a corporation now. You might think government is not yet. Government is every little police station, every road, every celebrity, every politician, every council. Everything is a corporation. Everything has been incorporated. In other words, they have taken everything from this side and put it into this side. And because everything is a corporation, now the rules of acquisition apply. Now we can do whatever the hell we want. And again, the rules of acquisition, the smaller businesses are eaten up by the bigger business. And it all goes up to the top, the Crown Corporation. Or if you like Resident Evil, you can think of this as the Umbrella Corporation. And what they've done to us is they've created a birth certificate. A second one is more like a dead certificate. They've given us a surname, and this is actually a corporation. So they've created a certificate for us that is corporate. Now, this certificate of us is in the corporate world, and they can do whatever they like to us under these rules and under UCC. And the deception is, we don't know this. There's a live certificate. We don't see this one. This has gone off somewhere. This is the one we get. And this one is copyright of the Crown Corporation. They own us. Well, they own them both. But this is how the tricks work. And now this side is the creditor. We can create credit from here because this is a living man or woman, boy or girl. This is going to do some work. Use this credit to supply money for the corporate world. But this one then is the debtor. So they make this one liable. So now in this world, you're the debtor. You create your own credit, but then they lock you in this world and make you pay it back again with interest. That's how they do it. So this is very, very dirty tricks. But we don't understand how any of this works, and they keep us ignorant on purpose. All this is secretive. UCC, very complicated. We can't understand it. Even this is difficult enough. This is impossibly difficult. Now, like I said, if you want to do any sort of business in this world today, they want you to do it through corporations. But why should we do business this way? This is evil. Like again, if you talk about demons, what is a demon? A non-physical entity that is trying to absorb your soul, bleed you dry. That's a corporation. By definition, that's a non-physical entity, a dead entity, trying to bleed you dry. Its sole purpose is to accumulate wealth and power. Nothing else. It has no care, has no ethics, it has no responsibility. And herein lies the other thing. A corporation was invented, the concept of a corporation was invented to absolve any living man or woman of responsibility or liability. So now anyone can do something in the name of a corporation, but this is not liable to the law. The law doesn't apply to it. This is just an excuse to break the natural law. We do not need this side at all. We do not need the corporate world. So how can we break out of this? Tricky, very, very tricky. And I'm still in the process of understanding this and researching it, but at some point I'm going to be getting out of this. So bear that in mind. Everything I'm talking about here is theoretical. I have not done this. This is the theory of it. But there are people that have, many people, and I'm going to leave links below to the Sovereign Project, who are doing a lot of work to explain this, and they know a lot of people. They've broken out of this system. But I'm going to just tell you now what you have to do, what we have to do to get out of the system is we have to reassert ourselves. We have to create our own paperwork. If we create the paperwork, we own it. So I have to create my own statement of who I am. And that's got to be signed with witnesses. I've got to create my own title for my own properties. And that's again got to be signed by witnesses. And I've got to create my own contracts. I've got to create them. If I don't create them, they're not mine. You see? And that's why we haven't got a parliament now, because we haven't signed it. We haven't actually signed it as a living man or woman. We put a cross. A cross is a child. It's an imbecile. We've essentially given our power of attorney away to the state, and the state is a corporation. So we've willingly entered the corporate world, and we have to go back and reassert ourselves in the sovereign world. So we do that by creating an affidavit. It's called an affidavit. Affidavit. Now this is really an oath. Affidavit. But it's essentially saying, I am who I say I am. And we're going to need to do this anyway, you see. If we want to do business in this world, outside the corporation world, how do we do it? You see, the other argument is, well, you've got big business, and so it's a big business. We've got to make sure they're following the rules, so it's got to be incorporated. And of course, incorporation is to do with tax. Tax is here. I didn't mention that, but tax is here. There's no tax on the common law side. Tax is against the law. You can make voluntary donations, but you cannot be taxed. But under corporate law, under UCC, under the rules of acquisition, tax is number one. So we want to step out of this. Of course we do. But again, we've got to, so how do we step out? We've got to prove ourselves to be a valid, honourable business person or businessman or woman, because otherwise no one will want to do business with us. So we also need to do this in order to be able to run a business in the real world as a sovereign. And I'll come to that. And this is, so we will need this also for our better system. You have to send it off to the people, relative people, the courts, the banks, various people that send it off to actually get it validated. In other words, you give them a chance to rebut it. Like if they don't agree, they've got to tell you why they don't agree. But you write it in such a way that they cannot disagree. And then after a certain amount of time, because they cannot disagree, it is now valid in law. And now that becomes a very powerful document. And once you've got this affidavit, and you can call it an affidavit of status, you are redefining yourself as a sovereign, or an affidavit of truth. You are stating the truth about yourself. Now there's one more level to this, which is an affidavit of character. And this is actually what we're going to need in our better system. See, we're going to need this. Because without the so-called security of the corporate system for business, how can we trust anyone to do business? Well, the only trust we've got now is your character. So not only have you got to create this affidavit of status and truth, you've also got to say, yes, I am a good standing person, or a good standing man or woman. I will do what I say. In other words, you are saying in this oath that I promise to follow the natural, the common law to the best of my ability and understanding. And I've got witnesses to say that I do. So you get people higher standing as you possibly can. Maybe you've done business with someone for many, many years and they know that you're honest and they sign it. Yes, I've done business with them for 20 years and I agree. And they sign their signature. So you have now a sworn statement with witnesses to your character. And now this will support you. This is a great basis for you. It's the only basis you can have that you can use to support you in any lawful problem or even any legal problem. You can still bring this out. And once you've got this, you can reassert yourself as the executor and the beneficiary of the trust fund that, remember, the state, the corporate state, has created for you. And because they don't tell you about it, they use it. But now you know about it, you claim it, essentially you'll gain control of that. Now that's a very big important step. Once you've got control of your trust fund, you can then settle your own debts. You can get yourself out of the debt slavery. And then the third thing you can do is reassert your contracts. Remember, the legal system, legislation applies to you through contracts, but it's through legal, corporate contracts, through your corporate birth certificate. So you can make, and these are all implied. You never really signed your signature as a living man or woman, not with your true understanding and knowledge of what was happening. So you can say all previous contracts are null and void, and only contracts that I now sign as the living man or woman will be valid. So that will help you step outside of all this stuff. Again, this is all in theory, but this is quite simple, a simple lawful method to reassert yourself under common law and take yourself out of corporate law, the rules of acquisition. And we also need this affidavit of character in order to do business in our new, better system. So let's talk about this new system now. So what do we need for this better system, this system of common law? Well, first of all, we need an identity. We need an identity, and that, of course, is our signature. Oops. And remember, there are two worlds here. We've got the real world, and then we've got the paper world. And here, this is one of the problems we've got. We've got a division of worlds. We need both these worlds, but they're separate. And this world has another problem. You know, you can fake a signature, forge the signature. But we need it. We still need it nevertheless. And then we also need to know what is our property. And for that we need a title. Again, paperwork world. And we need to know our agreements, our contracts. And that is, of course, again, contracts is in the paperwork world. And there's one more, remember, is money, gold, business. So that in the real world is gold, but over here we've got fungible titles. Fungible titles. So it's really still just property. Now, but we need this. And these two worlds are separate. Now, how can we make an improvement? We can already make an improvement of this with a new technology we've got, and that is blockchain. So we can have here blockchain. Blockchain can do all these things. So that is already a massive step up from paperwork, because paperwork is open to human error. Look at money, gold, fungible titles. Paperwork is accounting. So you can fiddle the books. Well, in blockchain you can't. And the same, titles and signatures, that can all be fiddled around with, changed. In blockchain you can't. But there's still a problem. You see, blockchain is still in a separate world. It's not yet connected to the real world. So it's an improvement on the paperwork, but it still does not connect the two worlds together. We need a bit more. And in fact, there's two more things we need. You see, there's another problem here in blockchain there's two types of blockchain. We've got centralized blockchain that is under the control of a small group of people, and they can do whatever they want to anyone on the blockchain. So we don't want that. That is what the state is trying to do, centralized blockchain. But what we want is decentralized. So everyone is fair and square across the blockchain and open sourced. Everyone can see the code and check that it is fair and square. So it's got to be open sourced, decentralized blockchain. But furthermore, the internet itself is centralized. So that's another big problem. You can just turn off the internet and the blockchain collapses. Turn off the mobile phone network, the blockchain collapses. So we need an alternative communications network. So this is again, if we've got that, communications, we need that. And we have now got that. Again, this is now new technology, thanks to a guy called Nicholas. He's an inventor, very, very clever guy. We've got a new breakthrough in two-way radio, and we can actually create a radio mesh network. In other words, a mobile phone network, essentially a smartphone network, but it won't need any of these towers. It works through Bluetooth, phone to phone, phone to phone. And this will be unstoppable. You can't turn it off. There's no centralized location. It works between all the phones. The only way to turn it off is collect up all the phones. So this technology is here now, and we're working on building this. And with that, we can also build an alternative internet, because that is the basis of a network of phones. We can have a network of computers connected through the same system. That is an internet, but unstoppable internet. That's one more thing we need. So that will allow us to have a truly decentralized blockchain. But there's one more thing we need, is a link between these two worlds. I've got to get across between this abstract computer world, paperwork world, to the real world, real objects. And again, thanks to this guy Nicholas, we have got that now. We have got that now. On a blockchain, we've got two things. We have got the coin, the money, think of Bitcoin, and that acts like gold. You can make it, behave exactly like gold, but it keeps it absolutely fair and square and incorruptible. So you've got the coin, but that is fungible. It's all the same, moves across, moves across. Then you've got something else called an NFT. This is a non-fungible token. This is a fungible token, which is money. Remember, money is a fungible title or fungible token. But now we've got a non-fungible token. So they're all different. This could be an individual title. So this could be an asset. You could have an asset as an NFT, because it's an individual asset, and you'll be able to pass this around through the blockchain. But remember, this is still just the paperwork, the title of the asset. The NFT is only the title, not the asset. But with this link, we can link this actual title, this NFT, to the real asset. How do we do it? Well, through Nicholas's very clever invention, we split the NFT into two halves. Half of the NFT is on the blockchain, and half of the NFT is on the object. In other words, it goes to a little microchip. So we have a little microchip. We have a little microchip on the object. So half of the NFT is on the blockchain, on the computer, but half of the NFT is on the object, a little tiny microchip. So if I have an object like this crystal, I could embed the chip inside here, and if I seal it over in such a way you can't get it out, then what that effectively means is that object has become semi-digital. I can scan that with my mobile phone, and that will bring me up to the NFT on the blockchain that this is. In other words, this object itself now, thanks to this little mini computer embedded in it, is now registered or recorded directly onto the blockchain. Now, in order to pass this or buy and sell this, it's not, I don't buy and sell the NFT, I have to scan the object itself, and only then can I pass the object across. So the value of it is exchanged through the blockchain, but the object itself has to be passed across. The new owner has to scan it to confirm they've received the object itself before the money is exchanged back the other way. Now we've got a genuine link of doing business, transferring assets through this division of an NFT into two halves. And this is a cryptography, a very clever high-level cryptography. I'm going to leave a link to another video where I talk about this in more detail, and I'll leave a link to the website where I talk about this in more detail. Now, I've called this project ENTIFY. This whole project I've called ENTIFY because ENTIFY is a real word. It means to give objective existence to something, create an entity. Because that's what we're doing. We're giving objective existence to blockchain. We're bringing this paperwork world, this abstract computer world into existence. This physical object now has become an NFT. I have brought an NFT into this physical object, ENTIFY. And there's three aspects to this system. The first aspect is blockchain itself. So we need to have a blockchain. So that gives you the background, the basis of it. Then we need to have a communication system that is truly decentralized. That is this radio mesh network that will ultimately be a smartphone network, but it's a completely independent smartphone network. It won't be like anything we've seen before. It'll be a one-off payment. You just got to buy the phone. Then everything on it is free. And there's no contract. It is yours outright. It will be a sovereign business. And then the third thing you need after blockchain and the communications is this link. This link between the real world and the abstract computer world. We need this little microchip system. But this link is very, very clever because not only can we create a link to an object like this, but I can use this little microchip to create a card. So I could have here, let's use this bit here. This little object could become a card, a credit card. And this chip is an NFC chip, near field communication. Literally a credit card, contactless payment. But this will be an identity card. But we shall call it a self-sovereign identity card. Only you will be able to access this card. It's unhackable. You can't hack it. The cryptography is very, very good. It's called post-quantum cryptography. Even a quantum computer cannot hack it. It's future-proof. And again, you've got to look at the website for more details about this. But essentially, we can create an identity card that we can have as sovereigns, and this will act as our signature. In other words, we can sign by tapping our card to something. We will have a unique number connected to a unique signature, and it's through this card, which is a division of an NFT. And on the NFT, we can put more information. We can have information that we need on this card about our identity. In other words, we can put out, for example, photographs or digital versions of our affidavits on here. A photograph of our signature to prove it's our signature. A little video of us signing to prove that is our signature. We can have all sorts of stuff on here. We could also have a voice print, myself speaking an oath on here. So this gives a very high value to this identity card because this card represents my character. And we can also then, because of this card, we can use this card to build the blockchain. In other words, the users of this blockchain must have this identity card. Now remember, it's a self-sovereign identity card. Only you can access it. So there's no risk here. This is not like the state digital ID, which would be centralized. This is completely decentralized self-sovereign, running across a totally independent communications network. And this is near field communication. This will work offline. It's in the card itself. I just touch the card to the phone. That's all I need. The phone does not need to be online for this to work. This is very, very exciting stuff. And because every user of the blockchain has this identity card, it guarantees every user on this blockchain is a real individual man or woman. There are no fake accounts. There can be no AI accounts on here. This is a way we can create a network for living men and women only. No artificial accounts. And it's totally outside the corporate world. And we can do business with each other through a coin. Ultimately we'll create our own coin. This will be ENT coin. ENT coin. Because ultimately we're going to create our own blockchain from scratch. That's the end goal. And we'll be able to build a brand new blockchain of a whole nother level because of this technology. And we'll be able to build a whole new internet, which we'll call the internet, the ENTINET, the ENTINET. It's a totally different system. And we're going to build, the first thing we're going to build is a communications network, a chat network. So we'll have social media, and we need that immediately. We'll have social media chat network between sovereigns with this independent communications network, so we can start building, communicating across the globe together, independently, totally private. There's another way of looking at this. Common law is in the private. Corporate law is in the public. This is the public. This is the private. Now, this might not be quite right what I'm saying. This is my way of saying it. This is the real world. It's private, sovereign. This is the made-up world. It's public, where you are, that somebody is telling you who you are. You are a corporation. Hang on, I never said I am. Yeah, you're a member of the public. We control you all. So we want to go back to the private. We don't want to be a corporate. Even in business, we're still doing business privately. No tax. We're not interested in tax. Where does that tax go? It goes to the Crown Corporation. What do? They use that money for the rules of acquisition, pillaging across the globe. So we don't want any money to go there. We've got to keep it on this side, the private side. And this system, ENTIFY, is the first realistic system that could do this. And we could operate an entire system of parliament, let's say, with this. Because we've got self-sovereigns, proven individuals with this card, we can have an election and cast a vote by touching this card. And the members, or not the members, the people in Parliament who want to offer their services as public servants or private servants, they themselves will have to have this card. And they will have to have an affidavit of character. So it will be a genuine meeting of minds. Every single one of us will be signing a contract openly and honestly. It's not going to be a cross. This will all be above board, sovereign. We can have a sovereign parliament through this, a direct democracy. And we can also have a lawful system. We can set up a court through this. The blockchain, ENTIFY, can arbitrarily select jury members through the blockchain. And they cast their vote through their card. This is all above board, incorruptible, no human error. In other words, we're creating a trust, but the trustee is the blockchain itself, infallible and incorruptible. And we can build an entire new system of government, not really government, let's call it parliament, and finance. We can build a whole new economy, but a genuine, real free market economy based on gold or based on credit, but credit done knowingly, private credit. We have to sign it through our own character. In other words, if I'm going to create credit, I actually have to pay it off. So this is not a dishonest world. This is a more honest world. This is a more responsible world. This is irresponsible. Remember, the very purpose of a corporation is to absolve anyone of responsibility. You can do great evil here, but no one is responsible. You can't over here. It will all boil back to your signature, your character, or your sovereign identity card. So this is going to be a small system at the beginning because people might not want to join it. I've got to put my name on the line. I'd much rather be in the corporate world. I can sort of do what I like. I've got liability. Yeah. So, but this is genuinely a better system. And this is the answer. So we're working on this. So do stay tuned. The technology is here. This ability to create the card is here. And it is patented. The cryptography is patented. And the communication system is here. We have now got a unit that can be used to create this wireless radio mesh communications. The only thing we're working on now is putting it all together into a chat network, a social media network for sovereigns. And this will be, again, check out the Sovereign Project. I'll leave the link below to their website. Very, very important project. They're doing something. They're collecting all the sovereigns together. They've created what they call the Sovereign Fraternity. And that's a fraternity of businesses. So businesses, all the sovereign businesses work together. We've got a whole new society. But we need a method of linking all these businesses together. And ENTIFY is the way. This is the best and the first only realistic global solution. This is a global self-sovereign solution. This here is global centralized solution, a global monopoly. That's why they want a global world. They want to impart UCC across the globe. It's the Crown Corporation operating under the rules of acquisition. The rules of acquisition, I want everything. All comes to the Crown Corporation. Now the sovereign system is actually smaller groups. You can create subgroups. It's going back to the living man and woman. You create a small group, and a small group links to bigger groups to bigger groups. So that's why you might have small councils for your village, bigger councils for your state, bigger councils for your country, and then you'll have bigger ones for internationally. And that's all fine as long as they're operating under this self-sovereign common law system. They're all just parliaments, slightly different variations of a parliament, meeting of multiple minds. But they all must have their signature on it. Every single person must know what they're doing and sign that agreement of a parliament. It can't be just an X. It's got to be sovereign, common law, natural law. And this is the way. So I hope this made sense. Please do leave any questions or comments below. I know there's going to be a lot of questions, and I'm going to have to make a lot of videos talking about this and more details about how this is going to work. But they'll be coming in time, and do keep an eye on the website. That will be updated time to time. And also you can join the Sovereign Fraternity, the Sovereign Project, which I thoroughly recommend because they will keep you informed of everything as well. And they'll get you on the network, a much bigger network. Ultimately, we all want to join all the networks together into one. It's got to be one big network to give us any chance. Okay, thank you so much for watching. Please do check out the previous lectures in this series because they do all lead up to this one. And I look forward to seeing you in any of these other videos here.